All right. Welcome everyone to the How to Apply webinar for the HUD CoC program competition for 2025. If I could get my screen to work. Okay, we're gonna do this a different way. Um, all right, so we are going to be talking about the HUD application. A few things that we're going to go over is just some basic information about the process. We're going to overview the NOFO and HUD priorities, our local process, which will include scoring criteria, timeline, and submission details, and then we'll have plenty of space for questions. If you want, you can put them in the chat. We can make sure that we can get them answered for you, or you can just hold on till the end and we'll make sure that we have plenty of time for those. This is just a disclaimer about this training. It's a general overview of the FY25 HUD program NOFO. You're still responsible for reading the entire NOFO from both HUD and from us and any related documents pertaining to this opportunity so that you can fully understand this cycle. Materials and resources are posted on our website. You can find those under funding, and we will update those as more and more information come out. So just a little bit about us. We're glad you could join us today. This is being recorded so that we can make sure that anyone who is not able to join us is able to watch this in its entirety. But the folks involved in this process are myself. I'm Sam Shukas. I'm the Housing Community Health Program Director at GWRC, as well as Megan Samples, our program coordinator, who is on the line with us today. In the background, we also have our Funding and Performance Committee, which is made up of a couple of individuals, and their full responsibility is reviewing all of your applications and making decisions about who will be included in our actual federal application. So a little bit about this, if you've never participated in this program before, the point of the CoC program is designed to promote community commitment to ending homelessness, really providing funding for efforts of individuals who are working to prevent and end homelessness, promoting access to the utilization of mainstream resources, especially those resources that are funded by state and local, and optimize self-sufficiency for families and individuals experiencing homelessness. And so in this round, the full CoC program is a federal pot of funds, and the current pot for this year is $3.9 billion. For our local community, we are looking at a possible application as high as $930,000. And the way that is currently split out is we are sitting at about $636,000 in renewal or reallocated funds. We can apply for a CoC bonus, which is additional funds above and beyond our renewal amount of $196,000 and a DV bonus. So projects that are specifically tailored for those fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence of about $98,000. Currently, our funded projects are an HMIS project for our database at GWRC for $58,000, permanent supportive housing with MICA for $387, and rapid rehousing for a powerhouse at $189, though those will change in the next year because of some of the new requirements and prohibitions that are in this NOFO. So we will go over what those are, but the current amounts are there, though those will not look the same next year. Eligible program types, there are two new ones this year, and so I do want to make sure that you're fully aware about what you're eligible to apply for. So our current eligible program types are permanent supportive housing. That's going to be long-term housing assistance with supportive services. Really traditionally tailored toward chronic homelessness, and this year towards elderly and physically disabled. Rapid rehousing, which will be your short-term rental assistance with supportive services. Transitional housing is one of the new project types this year that can be scattered or single site. Um, Temporary housing with required supportive services. You can also apply for just supportive services. You could do a standalone project, and that can be services that will be provided to people in emergency shelter, um, as well as any of your other projects that you're running. Supportive services only with street outreach, so really tailored towards trying to reach to those who are currently on the street and are least likely to seek services on their own. Supportive services for coordinated entry system. This is services for actually developing and operating how people move from homelessness to housing. And then there is an HMIS project that is eligible, but is only eligible for the HMIS lead. And so a couple of terms just to get you started. Renewal projects are going to be projects that are currently funded and are seeking funding again. And new projects are going to be your first time projects as well as any expansion of renewal projects. And so the way that our program is set up is we will receive all of our applications, we'll score them and rank them, and then they fall into two tiers. And so tier one is your automatic renewal. This is from HUD, and traditionally this has been 90% of our annual renewal amount. This year it is capped at 30%, and so only $190,000 of our current funding will be automatically renewed. Those projects still have to pass eligibility and a quality threshold, but they're conditionally selected from the highest scoring CoC to the lowest. And then everything else, which would include our annual renewal amount minus our tier one and our CUC bonus and DV bonus, fall into tier two. And so those will receive an individual project score of up to 100 points. 50 of those reflect the CoC score overall. And then 40 points are a proportional to your ranking as a CoC, and then 10 points for service participation, and that this is incorrect, but that you require service participation. And so just a lot of changes happening this year from other years. So one of the biggest changes is a permanent housing cap. So our community will be capped at 30% our annual renewal demand, which is $190,000. Currently, we're at about 84 to 90% of our funds go to permanent housing. So you will see a reduction of how that is distributed this year, only allowing us to submit an application that has $190,000 in permanent housing. As I mentioned, there's two new eligible project types, transitional housing and street outreach. And then there's a couple of new prohibitions for projects to be eligible. So HUD may reject any projects that engage in racial preferences, that use the definition of sex other than binary, and those that conduct any activities that are viewed as harm reduction. There is a new priority on treatment, recovery, and required services. So HUD's really favoring projects that have on-site substance use treatment, required service participation, and connection to sufficient treatment beds and 24/7 detox. And then finally, there are some individual project requirements that have come with additions and some changes for any new projects from some of our old eligible project types. So any new transitional housing must provide 20 hours a week of services. That can be reduced proportionally based on the number of hours that someone is working. So if someone's working part-time and they're working 20 hours a week, then there is only a requirement of 20 hours of supportive services. But the addition of both of them do have to add up to 40. And I need to see that in a lease agreement or occupancy statement, some kind of agreement that shows that their participation in the project is dependent upon their requirement of services. For rapid rehousing, they must show a strong employment outcome and again require services. Permanent supportive housing must serve elderly and physically disabled. This does not include substance use disorder, and so it really does have to be a physical or a developmental disability. And then again, we have to require services. And then for any new street outreach, you must show really strong coordination with law enforcement partnerships. And so just a little bit about our funding overview. The George Washington Regional Commission is the CoC lead agency and serves as the collaborative applicant for federal, state, and local funds. And so all grantees must go through the CoC's local funding process to receive funding consideration through the CoC. There is a process for solo applicants. However, you do have to show that you attempted to go through the CoC process and were excluded in some way. So if you are attempting to access these HUD funds, this is the process that you will have to use in order to seek funding from your community's allocation. So for us, we've put out the notice of funding, the applications, and the scoring sheet. You should have received an email, but those are also posted on our website. Those came out last week. Project applications are going to be received by our deadline. And then funding and performance reviews and scores each of those applications. And they decide whether or not to accept or reject those applications and determine the amount in which they'll be accepted at. We then take all the projects and rank them in order of priority, and then we will notify you the outcome, and we have an appeals process if for any reason you feel like you were wrongfully ranked or left out or excluded. There is an appeals process, and once appeals are closed, the funding outcome and applications are submitted for public review. This is all requirements from HUD, so this process is really objective and about how we go through what we need. So our local timeline for the submission of this application is application from your side are due to the CoC by the 12th of December at 11:59. I know this is a short turnaround. It is a requirement of HUD for me to receive applications from projects at least 30 days before the due date to HUD, and so it has made it a really short application process. The funding committee is currently scheduled to meet on December 15th, and applicants will be notified of the outcome of their meeting and review somewhere around December 16th. Appeals will be due by the 18th, and then as long as everything goes forward and we have a completed application, the board will review and approve the application on the 30th for us to be able to submit by HUD by the 14th of January. And so I do want to just pause for any questions that you might have, and then I will go into just some helpful tips and some places where you can find some of our information.